Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you Gillmore's Girlfriend versus the Knife Guy in round 3 of the second community patch tournament. This is of course played on the community balance mod. Make sure to check out the link in the description for all of the changes. Today's map is Sainte-Mère-Église Duellists, and on the allied side Gillmore has chosen the 3rd Armoured, and on the Axis side the Knife Guy has the 3rd Fallschirmjager. Now the 3rd Fallschirmjager hasn't actually changed that much, so we'll talk about that first. The only real thing that they're going to benefit from is the AT stealth changes for the smaller AT guns like the Pak 41s, and also the Stug 3 price buff, which should allow them to bring in more armour for a cheaper cost in the late game. As for the 3rd Armoured though, you can see that their income has changed. It is now AT 105 140. Which does give them a little bit of a leg up in the early game compared to how it used to be. So that's quite a nice change. They did tend to struggle in the early game, especially if they lost some of their expensive units like the M4A1s, for example. But there have been a bunch of other changes. They've now got an extra card of armoured LMG rifles in Phase B, which should allow them to bring in more like infantry availability, but also those M5A1 half-tracks I think they come in are pretty damn decent, so that'll be quite nice. The M8 Scots have increased their veterancy. That can make them very good for destroying infantry. Now they'll be 2-star veterancy with command, so I would not be surprised to see those demolish enemy infantry squads very fast. They've messed around with the veterancy of the M8 Greyhounds, and they've also changed the way the cards are set up. So now you can get 2 Greyhounds, M8 Greyhounds in Phase A on one card, which may lead us to see them being used more often in the game, because currently Greyhounds are kind of overlooked in a lot of ways, unless they are the like M8 Spy variants used in the French division. They have increased the M15 GMC's veterancy in Phase C, so those are now a lot stronger, and that means we are going to be seeing potentially 3-star M15 GMCs, which can shoot down enemy aircraft very, very efficiently. So the Knife Guy may have to worry about that if this game reaches the late game. Let's have a look at some of these units that are going down. Over on the side of the Knife Guy, he's got 2 units of Fallschirmjager on the top side. He's also got a Pak 41 Gerlich. Further down, it's going to be 2 more units of Fallschirmjager with potentially a Fallschirmpanzerabwehr and the Fallschirmführer. Then further down we see another Pak 41 Gerlich, 2 units of Fallschirmjägers and a Fallschirmführer. Now the amount of troops he has here seems pretty limited, so he might be investing in a ME109 early on or something like that. Gillmore, he has a recon on the bottom side, then the M3A1 half-track here with command. Going to be 2 units of armoured rifles, following that up with an AT gun. For the mid, it's going to be a mortar being brought in, and then further up we see 2 more armoured rifles, M3A1 half-track with a command, 6-pounder and recon. So same setup for the bottom and mid areas of the map. Bit surprised to see this setup. There's actually nothing heading to the top side of Gillmore, and that could mean that some ground is relinquished to the Knife Guy early on. If these compounds are not contested at all, that could give the Knife Guy a real nice setup early on. So I'm a little bit concerned about Gillmore's decision there. This is a 60mm mortar being brought in, and that will be able to provide some smoke and potentially a little bit of HE support onto some of these Fallschirmjägers. Well, Fallschirmjägers aren't the best at close range combat, but they are definitely better than armoured rifles. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Yeah, it's going to be the 6HE there versus the 6HE of the armoured rifles, but the veterancy, of course, making all the difference. Fallschirmpanzerabwehr are actually pretty decent at close range, but they won't really want to be sitting in this church for much longer, because they can be hit from pretty much all of the units in the surrounding area. We see a couple of Fallschirmjägers on the bottom side. These units haven't even unloaded yet. Meanwhile, the Knife Guy is just driving through on the top side, taking as much ground as he can. Gillmore's going to be responding to that with an M5A1. Realizes his mistake, but the knife guy already got a +2. So it seems to me as though a huge oversight here for Gillmore on the top side. Has just lost his recon in the town. And it probably won't be long until these armoured rifles go down either. They're not having a very good time against these Fallschirmjagers. In my opinion, with the 3rd Armoured on a map like this, you probably don't even want to contest the town, at least not until Phase B, where you have some better units to work with at close range. Because what you can do is definitely bring in something like an M4A1 or maybe even the M5A1 Stuarts and sort of press across the medium range on the bottom and top side. Of course, you can see the knife guy was prepared for that with the Pak 41s in place, but so far hasn't had to use them. The Fallschirmjagers in this building, perfect distance here to destroy the armoured rifles with the 6HE from the FG42 and the G43 plus the machine gun, the MG34 here. That's a serious amount of HE to rip apart enemy infantry squads at distance. But we can see that the M3A1 half-track and the M3 half-track alongside the 60mm mortar are able to force the Pak 41 back for now. Pak 41 has ended up shooting at the jeep that unloaded the scouts here. And we're going to see a half-track come into range of that as well. But that is going to get track wheel destroyed with the first shot. Pak 41 does find the kill afterwards, and the command is already dead due to the Fallschirmjäger killing those with the machine gun. Now the Pak 41 going to be engaging the M5A1, and the M5A1 only able to use its 1 HE power in order to engage that. So a really unideal engagement, but nice kill there by the M1 gun. Does take out a unit of infantry before it unloads. A little bit careless from the knife guy, but of course may not have expected to have an AT gun covering the backside of the town there. So the main idea of that infantry was most likely to just reinforce the top side. But here we go with the Pak 41 again trying to get the better of the M5A1. That's going to be a shooter wound. Pak 41 going to continue to fire away, has 8 AP versus a 6 armor, so only a small penetration chance, but after so many shots will eventually get the kill, you would expect. Now we see the ME109 G6R6 is coming in, double strafing run onto the 60mm mortar. Now that has been spotted by the Fallschirmjägers moving forwards, we can see that he is going to try and deal with that. The M5A1 did go down eventually to the Pak 41, and it looks like the M3A1 here is also going to get taken out by that Pak 41. So the Pak 41 on the top side has done a lot of work. The Fallschirmpanzerabwehr have been finding the half-track kills in the town as the Fallschirmjäger continue to move forwards. Fallschirmjäger here, I believe they have shots onto the mortar, but will be wanting to hunt down this M1 gun just to get rid of that and allow potentially some armor, maybe like an L6 from the Fallschirmjäger to continue to press forwards. M1 gun is going to be ran down, and this mortar also taken out in the process. So a dominating performance so far from the knife guy. I'm very surprised though that we have not seen an M4 or anything like it just yet. Of course the ME109s could strafe the M4A1 into submission, but alongside a little bit of AA, these ME109s can be dealt with, even if it's relying on maybe a Mustang to try and fight these, but you would have to invest in at least 2 in order to make that work. But since the knife guy is using these for strafing runs, it does leave the ME109s relatively vulnerable for when they get low on ammunition, and if you keep an eye on that, then the Mustang will always win this engagement regardless. We do see that an M16 MGMC has been brought in, so Gillmore does have AA in Phase A. Just got to get that into the right position to prevent those strafing runs in the future. And now we see with the 6-pounder dead in the mid, well, L6 is going to be coming in to try and take advantage of that. Double Fallschirmjäger getting the better of the armoured rifles at distance. These Fallschirmjägers also hitting the armoured rifles near the town. Pack 41 followed up by the Fallschirmjager, continuing to push up, and will eventually be able to help out with all of these half-tracks building up on the bottom side. Now these sort of half-tracks grouped up like this can certainly do a lot of damage to infantry, but a Pack 41 with its rate of fire can do a lot of damage very quickly if Gillmore is not too careful. We see that there is a crew wound onto the M3 half-track. After a couple more shots, that will surely go down. Now Gillmore has to be careful, make sure that his armoured LMG rifles here get into position. We're into phase B in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Currently though, we see the Pupschen go for the shot onto the M3A1 half-track, actually misses the shot, also missed the shot onto the MGMC. That being 3 stars, not often you see it miss twice in a row. But the Pack 41 has been brought down from the top side to get a crossfire to the mid. Really smart moves here from the Knife Guy. It does of course have the L6s on the way, but the Pack 41 on the bottom side continuing to do work onto the M3A1 half-track. Fallschirmjager throwing one of their H3s at the half-track does manage to make that surrender. But here comes the Pack 41 for a shot onto the MGMC, and that's going to be a one-shot kill. AA's gone down, and Gillmore in a very, very tough position here. So his infantry has just been outclassed across the board, and he's been slowly but surely pushed back because of that. But he definitely hasn't helped himself by not bringing in any significant fire support. Anything like an M8 Scott, for example, would be great against these Fallschirmjagers, or the M4A1, as I already mentioned, because it does have the front armor value to bounce things like the Pack 41 Gerlich. So you don't necessarily have to worry so much about the or the M4A1 going down to an AT gun early on because of that. The L6s though, they're going to be able to start doing a lot of damage to the armoured LMG rifles. We do see an M21 mortar carrier on the field that will be able to pin down the Fallschirmjager on the top side. If the armoured LMG rifles now push forwards, then that would be good ground made. But honestly, things are not looking good for Gillmore. Now both of these divisions moving into phase B do still have mediocre income, with the third armoured actually having a little bit more. But it looks like the Knife Guy coming in here for another big blow, going to be strafing the armoured LMG rifles and then going for the shots onto the M21 mortar carrier. Misses the first couple. Was a bit of an odd engagement honestly, but maybe lost line of sight briefly onto the M21, so decided to strafe the armoured LMG rifles instead. HS-129 coming in for another run. Can it find the kill? No, it will not, as it flies overhead. ME-109 G6R6s coming in for the strafing run do manage to wipe out the 6-pounder down here. That's going to open up the space for the L6s to push forwards, but here comes an F6C. Well, I haven't seen one of these in a while. There's no real reason to bring in an F6C over a Mustang in my opinion, because although they're pretty fast, they just don't have the guns to find kills. And they're very, very brittle aircraft. So you can see the ME-109 there make short work of the F6C, and that goes down. Yeah, bringing in just the standard Mustangs is always better in my opinion with the third armoured. But there we have it. The Knife Guy dominating performance, 1,035 kills to 90 losses. Didn't really lose anything. What did he lose in the end? Just a couple of Fallschirmjager, that was it. One to the M1 gun before it unloaded, and the other one got cut down in the open by the M16 MGMC. In terms of losses, the Fallschirmjager, wow, they did a lot of damage to Gillmore here. This one unit taking out the M1 gun, the 60mm mortar, took out those armoured rifles at close combat. This Pack 41 on the top side, killing 2 of the M3A1 half-tracks, killed the M5A1 Stuart and the MGMC. That's a really, really good value for money Pack 41. Same with this one, taking out 4 half-tracks. and we see the ME-109s also really helping out throughout that game. So in general, the only way that I can really look at this game is just Gillmore made the wrong decisions with where he wanted to place his troops. He relinquished the top side of the map to the Knife Guy without contesting it at all, which was a big mistake, and then decided to actually press on the town, which with units like armoured rifles is never going to really work out too well against an elite infantry division like the 3rd Fallschirmjager. So you definitely want to back off from that town early on and push on either side of the town on a map like that, and that's the real way in which you can make a lot of ground. But either way, good effort. Didn't quite work out though. The Knife Guy is certainly on point. Congratulations to the Knife Guy. That's it from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.